ChatGPT Plus is free for college students through May. Here's the thing. You've got a lot to do between now and then. Studying for finals, writing papers, trying to keep your life on track. And ChatGPT can help with all of it. It can quiz you for your econ exam, make a study guide from your French notes, plan out your meals and study breaks. It can get really specific on how you like to learn. It can even help you come up with ways to stop procrastinating. So from now until summer break, take advantage of all the ways ChatGPT can make your life easier. Restrictions apply.
It's the 77 WABC News Hour.
Sponsored by Secure Cash, LLC. Talking the news with Noah Layden.
All the news you need to know with Joe Nolan, traffic, Justin Ellick, sports. And now,
Talking the news with Noah.
On 77 WABC.
Yes, that's me, 5 o'clock. Good morning. It is Tuesday, April 15th. Tax day. Your forecast from the 77 WABC Weather Center. A mix of sun and clouds today. Could see a pop-up shower. High 65. Tonight and overnight, mostly clear, low 44. And then we cool down a little bit for Wednesday. Boy, we can't decide whether it's spring or not. Wednesday, cloudy, cooler, high 52. If you are walking out the door with us right now, 49 and cloudy in Garden City out on Long Island, 52 and cloudy in Englishtown over in New Jersey, and it is 51 and partly cloudy right outside our Midtown studios.
The top 5 at 5.
Another Columbia student is hauled away by ICE agents. California gets rocked by an earthquake. The line for helicopter rides in Midtown is long again. Trenton cops searching for the person who killed a mom and her daughter. And a crosswalk is sending out weird messages to walkers. All right, let's get into it at 5:01. Yep, another Columbia University student been arrested by Homeland Security agents.
Moshe Madawi is slated to graduate from Columbia next month. He's a permanent resident of the U.S., but after attending his naturalization interview in Vermont on Monday, Homeland Security agents arrested and detained him. He'd been an outspoken critic of Israel's war on Gaza and had been an organizer of student protests. Madawi's lawyers call the arrest unlawful and a violation of First Amendment rights. They say Madawi, who has been in the U.S. for 11 years and grew up in a West Bank refugee camp, stepped back from the protests in March of 2024. Jeff McKinney, 77 WABC News.
Mayor Adams visiting the Dominican Republic yesterday, paying his respects to those who were killed in last week's nightclub roof collapse. Mayor visited the site of the tragedy, flanked by members of his staff and Dominican officials, offering support to the victims' families.
Your brother from America is here to be with you during this time. During crises and tragedies, families pray. Families lift each other up. Family hug each other. My visit today is my hug.
Comes as New York City's large Dominican population remains in mourning following that April 7th incident. Governor Hochul also in the city yesterday delivering remarks at a vigil in the Bronx for the victims. Investigators say they've recovered 2 pieces now of that tour helicopter that crashed into the Hudson River last Thursday.
The rotor and the roof of the downed aircraft have now been recovered from the river in what could be an investigative breakthrough for the NTSB. Video from the moments before the crash last Thursday appeared to show the rotor of the helicopter detached in one piece from the body of the aircraft as it fell upside down into the river. Investigators are still working to understand how and why the accident took place, and it's possible those answers could come from studying the roof mechanism and the rotor. Jonathan O'Halloran, NBC News Radio, New Jersey.
5:03, a man facing attempted homicide, terrorism, arson, other charges following that early Sunday morning fire at the Pennsylvania governor's mansion. Firefighters fought the blaze at the Harrisburg residence of Governor Josh Shapiro. Shapiro and his family were home at the time. They were in a different part of the house. It's a big house, but they escaped unharmed.
I hope that he spends a lot of time behind jail for the heinous acts that he performed here in our capital city that put not only the first family, but my firefighters at risk.
That's Harrisburg Fire Department chief talking about the suspect in custody, Cody Palmer. Police say Palmer hopped a fence and then was able to get into the house somehow. How he did so without police noticing is a big question they'll have to answer. He had Molotov cocktails apparently in his hand. His wife, his mother, saying to the New York Post yesterday that he has mental health issues and was likely off his meds when he tried to get into and close to the Shapiro family inside the governor's mansion in Harrisburg on early Sunday morning. 5:04, let's go out to California. The ground was shaking there yesterday, the San Diego area, dealing with the aftermath of a 5.2 earthquake. Elizabeth Cochran, she says Southern California is not out of the woods. She's one of those seismologists.
With an earthquake of this size, there's an expectation that we will have many aftershocks occurring in the next few days to weeks.
Yeah, so she says there's a 5% chance of an aftershock that's larger than 5.2. Now, this earthquake was obviously felt in San Diego, which was the epicenter, but they could feel it as far away as Los Angeles.
Folks should just realize that there is some chance of a larger earthquake occurring.
Yeah, okay.
We do estimate that there will be many aftershocks in the coming days. Hopefully those stay small, but there is a 5% chance of a magnitude 5.2 or larger earthquake in the next week.
And there are no reports of any real damage or injury, so that's the good news. Robin Boylan is with the local Chamber of Commerce in San Diego and says that she was in City Hall at the time when the earthquake took place.
Honestly, it felt like the world was coming to an end. Yeah. I thought, I'm in a 110-year-old building, Town Hall, and I thought, this building's going down.
You know, of course, California has always been waiting for the big one to take place.
Every car alarm was going off, and every business and all the people shopping at the businesses were out on the sidewalks just checking on everybody else, making sure everybody was okay.
Yeah, and if you never lived through one, I have a brother lives in Southern California, happened to be out there on vacation once when there was an earthquake, and it is pretty frightening.
Everybody immediately came outside to check on each other and just sort of, I guess, come together as a community to feel secure.
Okay, so there have been some small aftershocks. Thankfully, nothing too terrible. And again, no word of any serious damage and no word of any injury, so we like that. 5:06, the federal government announcing yesterday that it's freezing more than $2 billion in grants to Harvard University now.
The move comes hours after the school said it would not accept the Trump administration's proposed conditions to continue federal funding. Those demands included auditing the viewpoints of students and faculty and punishing students who took part in pro-Palestinian protests on campus last year. The administration's Joint Task Force to Combat Anti-Semitism says the harassment of Jewish students is intolerable and that it's time for elite universities to take the problem seriously and commit to meaningful change if they want to continue receiving taxpayer support. I'm Mark Mayfield.
WABC News Time 5:06. Let's go down to Washington, D.C. President Trump at the White House says Iran needs to end its nuclear weapon program. He told reporters that talks with Iran will continue this Saturday, but the regime has to get rid of the concept of ever having a nuclear bomb.
I want them to be a rich, great nation. The only thing is, one thing, simple. It's really simple. They can't have a nuclear weapon.
So Trump says that Iran is used to dealing with what he said are stupid people, referring to the Biden administration. He claims when he left office the first time, Iran was stone cold broke and that Biden gave them money back, and now they think they're dealing with the same thing with him. And he says the Trump White House, the second one, 2.0, is a lot different.
They got to go fast because they're fairly close to having one. And they're not going to have one. And if we have to do something very harsh, we'll do it. And I'm not doing it for us. I'm doing it for the world.
All right, 5:07, we're going to get more from the White House. The president talking about a whole host of things yesterday, including the Russia-Ukraine war. He was hosting the president of El Salvador, which led to some interesting moments, and we'll get into that in just a moment. But first, 5:08, the White House is defending its decision to deport a man from Maryland, mistakenly deported to a prison in El Salvador. Attorney General Pam Bondi says there's evidence the man is a gang member.
He was illegally in our country. He had been illegally in our country. And in 2019, two courts, an immigration court and an appellate immigration court, ruled that he was a member of MS-13 and he was illegally in our country.
President Trump again said courts do not dictate America's foreign policy. Secretary of State Marco Rubio says that the person in question is a citizen of El Salvador and in the U.S. illegally and was simply sent back to his country of origin.
It's very arrogant even for American media to suggest that we would even tell El Salvador how to handle their own citizens as a starting point.
Now that conversation going on as President Trump and the president of El Salvador were having a friendly conversation at the White House yesterday.
But what they've done to us at the border should never and can never be forgotten. It's a sin what they did. And you are helping us out.
President Nayib Bukele says he was honored to be with Trump and says what's happening at the U.S. border in terms of stopping illegal immigration, he called it remarkable.
We had an administration that allowed people to come in freely into our country from not only South America, but from all over the world. Came from prisons, and they came from mental institutions, and they came from gangs and the gangs of Venezuela and other places.
And as the president was speaking, we're seeing more and more numbers that suggest illegal immigration across the southern border continues to take a nosedive.
The feds are out with new numbers for the month of March. Agents made about 264 arrests a day. That's a 20% decline compared to February. It's also a drop in the bucket compared to last year when federal agents were making more than 4,000 arrests each day. But the drugs keep coming. March seizures of fentanyl increased month over month. I'm Brian Shook.
From the U.S. southern border, we head over to Greenland. The U.S. Space Force base in Greenland now has a new commander. Ira Spitzer reports that Colonel Sean Lee has taken over after the previous commander, Susanna Meyer, was removed for sending an email where she distanced herself from remarks that were made by Vice President J.D. Vance.
In a social media post announcing Meyer's firing, a Pentagon spokesperson wrote that actions to undermine the chain of command or to subvert President Trump's agenda will not be tolerated.
Spitzer reports that Myers was removed from her post because of a loss of confidence in her ability to lead.
The now former head of the U.S.'s Patuxent Space Base in Greenland, Susanna Myers, reportedly sent an email to staff saying that J.D. Vance's comments accusing Denmark of not keeping Greenland safe didn't reflect the views of the base's leadership. Vance's March visit was part of efforts by the Trump administration to express interest in taking over the massive Arctic island for national security reasons. Those efforts are seen as threatening by the leaders of both Greenland and Denmark, who met on the island earlier this month to express their opposition.
WABC's Ira Spitzer. WABC News Time 512. Out to California. Terry Baralt, she is the 85-year-old aunt of the Menendez brothers. Those are the brothers who were behind bars for killing their mother and father back in the 80s. She's hospitalized in critical condition. Baralt's daughter made the announcement on social media yesterday.
This is a hard video for me to make. I need to share with you that she was taken to the hospital by ambulance early this morning.
Now, of course, this is a big deal because the family's been petitioning to get the brothers out from behind bars. She is the sister of the mother that the brothers killed. The family blames Los Angeles County District Attorney Nathan Hochman's office, saying that Barat fell ill after prosecutors showed graphic photos of Jose Menendez's dead body without warning during a court hearing last week. They say that's what sent her into a tizzy. Now, this Thursday, of course, the big day for the Menendez brothers. They'll have a resentencing hearing, something they have sought out for a long time. 513, the director of the National Economic Council says more than 10 countries now have offered amazing trade deals. Kevin Hassett says this will all work out in the end when it comes to these tariffs.
Just before I came in, equities were up a lot. I think the equilibrium policies of the president are going to be very, very good for the country and for equities.
Hassett also said there's no chance the U.S. will fall into recession this year, as some economists have predicted. Meanwhile, he pushed back on claims of insider trading by White House officials before the president announced that pause in tariffs last week. 513, out to Arizona. The trial of the so-called Doomsday Mom entering its second week in an Arizona courtroom. Lori Vallow Daybell is accused of conspiring to kill her fourth husband back in 2019 with the help of her brother. And on Monday, prosecutors played the phone call she made to the insurance company to claim the death policy.
Was it a homicide? No, it was an accident. An accident, okay. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Daybell is representing herself in the case. She was found guilty in Idaho in 2023 of murdering her two young children and conspiring to murder her husband, Chad Daybell's first wife. Lori Vallow Daybell concludes her call with the insurance company, which was played in court yesterday.
Okay, is there anything I can help you with at this time? That's it, I think. Okay, ma'am. Well, I'm very sorry for your loss. You take care of yourself. Thank you. Okay, bye-bye.
514, there's another big case up in Boston. Jury selection in Karen Reed's murder retrial. That'll resume today. The judge told prospective jurors that they should not be swayed by the intense media coverage of this case.
People outside of this building have rights, and we know that they have voices. But this criminal trial will be decided by an independent jury, free from outside interference.
So Reed is accused by prosecutors of hitting and killing her cop boyfriend with her SUV back in 2022. Late Monday, a total of 16 jurors was reached, but the judge wants 18 total for the case.
While public comment will likely continue, the rule of law will be upheld.
Yeah, so the judge again telling those prospective jurors to stay away from the media reports of this story. 5:15. Let's head over to the 77 WABC Sports Desk. Good morning, Justin Allen.
Good morning, Noam Layden. We'll start here with some baseball out in the Bronx. Trent Grisham, Ben Rice, and Austin Wells each hit a solo home run off Seth Lugo in the fifth inning, and the Yankees beat the Kansas City Royals 4-1 in their first meeting since last year's AL Division Series. Jazz Chisholm Jr. tied the score in the fourth with his sixth homer, an inning after Bobby Witt Jr.'s home run against Carlos Carrasco on the 10th pitch of his at-bat put Kansas City ahead. Carrasco and four relievers combined on a two-hitter for the Yankees, whose starters entered with a 5.40 ERA. New York had lost 5 of its previous 7 games. The Yankees beat the Royals in 4 games during their ALDS last October. Up next for the Yanks, the ace Max Fried will take the hill in tonight's middle game of this series with Kansas City. First pitch is scheduled for 7:05 p.m. from the Bronx. In Minnesota, Juan Soto hit his first home run since the opening weekend of the season, and the Mets beat the slumping Minnesota Twins 5-1. Pete Alonso and Luis Angel Acuna had 2 hits apiece for the Mets, who have won 9 of 11. Alonso delivered an early RBI single, and Acuna stole a base and scored twice while reaching safely 3 times from the number 9 spot in the order. Clay Holmes allowed just 2 hits while striking out 8 in 5 innings for the Mets. As a starter, that little experiment for the Mets working out so far this season. Up next, Tyler McGill starts the middle game of the series tonight from Minnesota. First pitch there is set for 7:40 p.m. To the NHL in Florida, Vinny Trocheck scored a shorthanded goal early in the third period against his former team, and the Rangers beat the Florida Panthers 5-3. Matt Rempe and Johnny Brodzinski also scored for the Rangers. Florida fans gave retiring Rangers broadcaster Sam Rosen a warm ovation during a first-period stoppage in play when he was shown on the video screens. Panthers coach Paul Maurice and general manager of hockey operations, President Bill Zito, also paid tribute to Rosen before his final road game. The Rangers end their season at home come Thursday against Tampa Bay. Tonight on the ice, the Islanders will get the first of their final 2 games underway at home against the Washington Capitals. Puck drop there is scheduled for 7:30. The same goes for the Devils, the only playoff-bound team locally, and they'll be in Boston tonight to skate with the Bruins at 7 p.m. And we got a couple NBA play-in games now to look forward to tonight as the postseason, I guess, officially gets underway here. 7:30 p.m. The Hawks are at the Magic in the East. The winner goes on to play 2-seed Boston in the first round of the Eastern Conference playoffs. And at 10 p.m. tonight out west, the Grizzlies are at the Warriors. The winner there goes on to play 2-seed Houston in the first round. That is your Sports Gnome, and I'm Justin Ellick on 77 WABC.
WABC News Time, 5:19. A Southern California lawmaker wants homeless students to be allowed to sleep in their cars. He has put forth a bill that he says is born out of necessity for a fair amount of college students these days.
Campuses rejecting, kicking out students out of parking lots who are only trying to seek a safe and stable place to sleep at night.
So the first of its kind bill would require colleges and universities to set up a safe parking lot on campus for homeless students or students who can't afford to live in the dorms or apartments. In California, rent is just outrageous. And he says it's not a permanent solution, but rather a safe temporary one. So students who are caught amid this housing crisis in California, rent in California, by the way, is like 30% higher than the rest of the nation. And so it's just become unaffordable. So he says, okay, let's let these kids sleep in their cars.
We want to make sure that we have housing vouchers, that we fund additional housing units, both at the CSU and community college level. But the reality is, if we started building housing now, it would take at least a year or two before that housing becomes available.
But now, California, by the way, not the only place where this is happening. Colleges all across the country report that they have students who go to food pantries, don't have places to live.
Simply because they do not want, well, they say they don't want the liability, but when we take away the liability, then they find another reason, right? And so I believe that they are losing the moral high ground. I think that it'll get out of appropriations. I'm very confident that it'll get out of the state assembly, and, the fight will be on the state senate.
Now, you didn't give us a total of how many students are actually living in their cars going to California universities, but it does seem a little outrageous. 521, President Trump hinting now that he'll make an endorsement in the race for Senate in Texas. Attorney General Ken Paxton is trying to unseat Senator John Cornyn.
Well, they're both friends of mine. They're both good men.
Yes, he told reporters aboard Air Force One that he'll make a determination soon on who to endorse, but he still has time to do so.
We don't know who else is running, but these two, Ken and John, they're both friends of mine.
Yeah, so the election, of course, not until November. President Trump says he's well aware of the face-off between what are two popular Republicans in the Lone Star State. 521, have you gotten one of those real IDs yet? Here in the city, New Jersey, Connecticut, you have to have one of these real IDs, by the way, to use it at the airport unless you bring your passport. Passport will work. But if you don't have a passport and you want to fly, come May 7th, you'll need this real ID. Now, you'll know you have the right driver's license. If you have a star in the right-hand corner, then that means you're good to go. But most people don't have this. So you need to get this before May 7th. That's when real ID enforcement begins. Correspondent Maggie Vespa has more.
The federal government still sticking to that long-delayed May 7th deadline, requiring travelers using a driver's license to board domestic flights to have a real ID, which has specific markings on the top of the card.
And I told you need a passport if you don't have the real ID. If you don't have a passport, actually, you can bring a birth certificate to the airport.
A UN agency that advises countries on aviation practices is looking to roll out a new digital travel credential, according to the Times of London, which would allow passengers to upload their passport info to their phones and use a scan of their face to check in, drop bags, and board a plane.
That would be smart if they let you do that, but see if they all figure that out. When you talk to people, by the way, up in the Bronx, we did this story last week, people talking about waiting 5-6 hours in line at the DMV to get their real ID. Similar stories of that in New Jersey, too, where the line is long and you have to wait, especially if you're waiting to the last possible minute.
What do you mean? I have until May 7th to get a real ID.
I don't think anyone expected that, the day would finally come.
The real ID driver's licensing appointments are now booked out to June in my area.
Yeah, well, you waited till the last minute. 523. A new study finds there might be a link between CT scans and a slightly elevated cancer risk.
The scans, which expose patients to radiation, could account for about 5% of cancers diagnosed each year. The types of scans most often linked to increased risk were abdomen and pelvis scans. Lung cancer and colon cancer are estimated to be the most common types associated with the scans. Researchers say there is considerable uncertainty about the estimates. The study was led by researchers at the University of California, San Francisco, and was published Monday in the journal JAMA Internal Medicine. I'm Tammy Trujillo.
524, let's go back to Washington. Mark Zuckerberg took the stand yesterday as a major antitrust trial involving Facebook's parent company Meta got underway in D.C. The Federal Trade Commission accuses the social media giant of creating a monopoly, buying up rivals Instagram and WhatsApp to keep a lid on competition.
The trial, which is expected to last about 2 months, could ultimately lead to Meta being forced to sell off those assets. However, Meta's attorneys pointed to developments such as the rise of TikTok to show that competition has been alive and well. After the opening statements, the FTC then called Meta CEO Mark Zuckerberg to the stand as its first witness. The trial is also expected to feature other high-profile witnesses, including Meta's former chief operating officer Sheryl Sandberg and Instagram head Adam Mosseri. Ira Spitzer, San Francisco.
WABC News Time 525. Did you see the private space flight company Blue Origin put their rocket into the sky aboard it? A whole bunch of celebrities, including Gayle King, the CBS morning host, and her best friend Oprah Winfrey. I kept seeing this on TikTok yesterday. Her best friend Oprah Winfrey was there. when the rocket was taking off. And Oprah started crying. I guess she was so worried that that rocket may not come back down. It did. The private space flights included also pop star Katy Perry, who says the ride, which is about 11 minutes or so, they get up out of the atmosphere and they get to see what it's like to be in a weightless atmosphere. And she said it was a 10 out of a 10.
It is the highest high, and it is surrender to the unknown.
So she was joined by Jeff Bezos' fiancée, Lauren Sanchez. She was the one, because her husband owns the company, she was the one who put the entire flight together. So she chose Gayle King, Katy Perry, a couple scientists as well. And they launched from a spaceport in West Texas yesterday.
To go to space is incredible, and I wanted to model courage and fearlessness.
Okay.
You're like really finding the love for yourself, because you got to trust in yourself on this journey. And then you're feeling the love when you come down, for sure.
Yeah, so it was an all-female crew, so they were making a big deal of that as well.
Touchdown. Congratulations, and welcome back to Earth.
Yeah, so they said it was pretty great. I think this is Gayle King.
Oh, my God. That was amazing. It was amazing.
Yeah, so Gayle King says it was a good time. 5:26. At the White House yesterday, President Trump welcomed in the Ohio Buckeyes. They were there to celebrate that national championship they won earlier this year.
But today is my great honor to welcome the 2024 College Football National Champions, the Ohio State University.
Vice President J.D. Vance, who of course is from Ohio, joked that he had asked the president if he could skip the inauguration event to attend the national championship. You remember it was the same day at 9.
This was a historic year in college football, standing together today. These men in the first college, think of that, are the first college football players in history who can proudly call themselves 12-team playoff champions. You're the first ones.
Yes, the president really knows his college football when you listen to him talk like that.
I asked the president on January the 20th, I said, sir, would you mind if I skipped that final inaugural ball to go to the Ohio State National Championship game? And the president said, no, but we'll have him at the White House. So here we are.
Of course, Ohio State defeated Notre Dame to claim its first title since 2014.
It's the 77 WABC News Hour.
Sponsored by Secure Cash, LLC. Talking the news with Noam Laden.
All the news you need to know with Joe Nolan, traffic, Justin Ellick, sports. And now,
Talking the news with Noam.
On 77 WABC.
Yes, that's me, 5:34. Good morning. It is Tuesday, April 15th. Your forecast from the 77 WABC Weather Center, a mix of sun and clouds today. Could see a pop-up shower. Going to be warm, high 65 tonight. And overnight, mostly clear, low 44. And then it cools down for Wednesday. Cloudy, high 52. If you are walking out the door with us right now, so happy you are. 49 and cloudy in Garden City out on Long Island. It's 52 and cloudy in Englishtown over in New Jersey. And it's 50 and clear right outside our Midtown studios. So if you were listening at 4:30 this morning during the James Flippin Show, you can hear him overnight from 2 to 5. We were talking about the fact that it is tax day. And I remember when I was a young reporter, which was a while ago. When I was a young reporter, they would send me to the Farley Post Office in right across from Madison Square Garden. And this was in the day before there was TurboTax and all these online applications where you could, have your taxes done for you. And there would always be people who waited to the last possible moment. Do you remember you could get the tax forms? You remember this? Maybe you still can. You could go to the post office and get that paper tax form, the 1040, and they'd have those little boxes in it. You'd have to fill the whole thing out. It was always very incredibly complicated. And it was great because I'd go to the post office and there'd always be a slew of people who would be there with like a bag of receipts on April 15th, sitting or standing at the counter with those pens that were tied to the counter, filling out their tax forms at the last possible moment. And then there were other times, so that's gone because nobody's doing that anymore. And then the other one was the people who would drop the check in at midnight. That used to be an event in itself. So you'd wait at the post office, wherever the town was, and usually there was some promotion tied to it. So the people who were putting their check into the mailbox at the last possible moment at 11:59 and 59 seconds, they would get like donuts from Dunkin' Donuts. Well, those days are gone. But your taxes are still due today. And if you haven't started and aren't done yet, there is still hope. 'Cause I'm the tax man. Yeah, I'm the
If you're in a crunch, you need to file for an extension. The key thing to keep in mind is to file your extension today, which will give you 6 more months. Taxpayers impacted by natural disasters in 12 states have automatic tax extensions to file and pay their 2024 taxes. Some extensions only apply to certain areas within those states, so the best bet is to check with the IRS. I'm Tammy Trujillo.
It's at 5:39. 5 people arraigned on a 14-count indictment yesterday in connection with the trafficking of 2 teenagers here in New York. This is just a god-awful story, especially if you're a parent. One of the victims, a 19-year-old girl, was taken when she went to a concert in Times Square last October. That's what this indictment alleges. The 19-year-old was shown a gun, ordered to get into a car as she was at this concert, at which point she was taken to an apartment in Crown Heights. This is what the indictment alleges. The victim was then forced to engage in prostitution here in the city. Then they took her up to Albany and then down to North Carolina. On November 6th, the victim was, thank God, able to call 911 as she was being held against her will in a Red Roof Inn hotel in North Carolina. And she told them that she was suicidal. So the cops responded. They took her to the hospital. They released her 4 days later, put her on a Greyhound bus back to New York, where she's from. And when she got to the Port Authority, she told the police who were inside the Port Authority that she had been trafficked for the last 5 months. They were able to put this whole story together, and thank God they picked up these 5 creeps, and let's hope they have them behind bars for a good time to come. 5:40. A permanent resident of the U.S. and a student at Columbia University arrested yesterday, detained by Department of Homeland Security agents after attending his naturalization interview. At Columbia University, where he recently attended, Moshe Madawi was an outspoken critic of Israel's military campaign in Gaza and an activist and organizer in student protests on that campus until March of 2024. Now, his lawyers say he stopped for some reason after that. We don't know why. Madawi's attorneys call his arrest unlawful and say it violates the First Amendment. When students on campus heard about his arrest yesterday, they had an impromptu rally.
This is not just about student activists that are being attacked because of their free speech. We are also seeing immigrants across the country that are being abducted and deported without any due process, shipped off to what are essentially concentration camps in other countries. This is horrific.
Madawi was born and raised in a refugee camp in the West Bank until 2014 when his family moved to the U.S. He has been a legal resident for the last 10 years and was expected to graduate Columbia just in a couple weeks. And in December of 2023, he appeared in a 60 Minutes piece where he talked about this incident with an Israeli soldier when he was living in the West Bank. Now, we reached out to Columbia University for a comment from them. They declined to comment on Madawi's detention. 5:42. The main rotor and roof structure from the deadly helicopter crash last Thursday has been recovered from the Hudson. It could be the most important piece of evidence yet. It's now in the hands of the NTSB after it was pulled from the water yesterday. So key components of this Bell 206L4 helicopter that crashed into the Hudson will hopefully aid the National Transportation Safety Board as it investigates why the chopper fell out of the sky last week, killing an entire family from Spain, along with the helicopter pilot. Governor Hochul, she was talking about this yesterday. First of all, about the crash itself.
Yeah, I've not had a chance to process. I mean, that is a horrible tragedy. When you see those children's faces and they're so happy and excited to be in New York, and to know that they're forever gone, it just makes your heart sink.
And then the reporter who was interviewing her, this was on New York One last night, asked if she wanted to ban these tourist helicopter flights over Manhattan. Now, I can tell you for years, both on the Manhattan and New Jersey side, people who live on the water say that they're nervous that these helicopters that have crashed, not too often, I will point out, could crash into these densely populated areas. There's, of course, apartment buildings that dot both sides of the river. People love the view. So she says no, she's not necessarily in favor of that happening.
I will look at the answers. I know there's some bills introduced in the legislature, and again, there'll be many debates about this, but I think we just need to right now process the sadness of that tragedy and the loss of life.
Now, we know a lot about the family from Spain. In fact, we were listening to yesterday during the news hour, the brother of the family who came to New York from Spain over the weekend to take the bodies back. But we haven't heard anything about the pilot. Well, now we know who he is. He's Sean Johnson. He was a Navy veteran, a longtime helicopter pilot. And here is a friend and the person who actually trained him to be a pilot a long time ago.
Sean was just a great human being. He wasn't just a great sailor. He wasn't just a great helicopter pilot. He was one of those people that was just full of light and energy.
Yeah, so it comes as New York Helicopter Tours, the company involved in the deadly crash, has grounded all its flights as an investigation unfolds. Now, we had told you yesterday that they said they were closing for good. They pushed back on that, saying, no. We're suspending flights as this NTSB investigation, FAA does their investigation into the crash. So assuming that they're hoping to open again. Now, here's the question I would ask you. After that helicopter crash, would you be willing to take a helicopter ride a couple days later? So at the heliport in Midtown, where there's other tour companies that do tours of Manhattan and of the New Jersey view of Manhattan and of the Statue of Liberty, they were brisk. Business was brisk for them yesterday. And people said, yes, they had heard about the crash, but they weren't worried about the safety of their ride as they went up in helicopters yesterday.
We are very sad for the family. We feel sorry for them and their relatives, of course. But, well, what do you want? Of course we think about it, but we hope it won't happen today. Exactly. Yeah. Once in a lifetime.
Right. So they think, okay, it was worth it. And they said, no. They said this was going to be the highlight of their trip, taking this helicopter tour. And so they did yesterday. 5:45. Let's head over to the 77 WABC Sports Desk, and here's Justin Ellick.
These people have a death wish. My goodness. No.
Well, see, there is this argument that after something like this happens, it may be the safest time to go because everybody's triple checking to make sure everything's okay. And that's what the argument of some of these people who were taking the helicopter ride yesterday said, no, this may be the safest day to take it.
You think fate takes that into account?
No.
Aha!
No. Yeah.
If you're a believer in such things. Now, listen, I mean, logically, yeah, what you just said makes a little bit of sense, but wouldn't you think the fear factor of it all kind of, I don't know, it would at least turn me away from doing that.
Yeah, I'm right there with you.
But listen, I'm not a tourist coming here from a country. I live in New York City. It's not like I'm coming here for the first time. Never been here before. Want to see the skyline. I see the skyline every damn day. So. Yeah. All right, whatever. To the MLB in the Bronx, Trent Grisham, Ben Rice, and Austin Wells.
We're doomed.
We might be doomed.
We are doomed.
They each hit solo shots off Seth Lugo in the fifth, and the Yankees beat the KC Royals 4-1 in their first meeting since last year's AL Division Series. Jazz Chisholm Jr. tied the score in the fourth with his sixth homer. Carrasco and four relievers combined on a two-hitter for the Yankees, whose starters entered with a 5.40 ERA. New York had lost 5 of its previous 7 games. The Yankees beat the Royals in 4 games during their ALDS last October. Up next for the Yanks, the ace Max Fried will take the hill in tonight's middle game of this series with Kansas City. First pitch scheduled for 7:05 p.m. from the Bronx. In Minnesota, Juan Soto hit his first home run since the opening weekend of the season, and the Mets beat the slumping Minnesota Twins 5-1. Pete Alonso and Luis Angel Acuna had 2 hits apiece, for the Mets, who have won 9 of 11. Alonso delivered an early RBI single, and Acuna stole a base and scored twice while reaching safely 3 times from the number 9 spot in the order. Clay Holmes allowed just 2 hits while striking out 8 in 5 innings for the Mets. Up next, Tyler McGill starts the middle game of the series tonight from Minnesota. First pitch there is set for 7:40 to the NHL in Florida. Vinny Trocheck scored a shorthanded goal early in the third period against his former team, and the Rangers beat the Florida Panthers 5-3. Rempe and Brodzinski also scored for the Rangers, who are going to miss the playoffs. Florida fans gave retiring Rangers broadcaster Sam Rosen a warm ovation during a first-period stoppage in play when he was shown on the video screen, so that was a nice moment. The Rangers end their season at home come Thursday against Tampa Bay. Tonight on the ice, the Islanders will get the first of their final 2 games underway at home against the Washington Capitals. Puck drop there is scheduled for 7:30. The same goes for the Devils, the only playoff-bound team locally. They'll be in Boston tonight to skate with the Bruins at 7 p.m. And we get play-in games in the NBA underway tonight as well. 7:30 p.m. The Atlanta Hawks are in Orlando to face the Magic. That's in the East, obviously. The winner goes on to play 2-seed Boston in the first round of the Eastern Conference playoffs. And out west, the Grizzlies, they're at the Warriors at 10 p.m. tonight. The winner there goes on to play 2-seed Houston in the first round.
And people were thinking the Warriors can win that and then go on and win the Western Conference?
Yeah, for sure.
They've been playing that good?
Oh, yeah. No, definitely. I mean, ever since they got Jimmy Butler, man, they're a different team. That's for damn sure.
He looked hurt in the last game. Was he? I don't know if he was or not.
I'm going to have to look into that for you. I mean, listen, it's a long season. A lot of guys are hobbled going into the playoffs a bit here, and it's tough for the Warriors. You got to play in these playing games. You don't really have any rest time here between the end of the regular season and the start of the playoffs, so we shall see. But I would imagine he's going to be out there tonight. No, I'm later.
All right. Yeah.
All right. That's your sports. I'm Justin Ellick on 77 WABC.
WABC News Time, 5:49. Cops in Brooklyn looking for a group of people who climbed into the sewer. Not sure what this is all about, but it happened about 5 o'clock yesterday, 17th Avenue in Bensonhurst. Police say an unknown number of people removed a manhole cover and then went in. One person stayed behind and replaced the manhole cover. Police say the person was arrested. They're still looking for the other people involved. I don't know if that suggests they're still in the sewer or they got out somewhere else. 5:50. While we're in Brooklyn, neighbors discovering a dead fetus on Union Street in Crown Heights. The unsettling scene appears to have been discovered like 9 in the morning. But the first person that saw this dead fetus, which is shocking, did not report it to the cops. So it wasn't until 5:15 in the afternoon that more neighbors discovered this fetus, and they called human fetus, I should point out, and called 911. Police quickly set up a crime scene and tried to figure out exactly whose fetus this was.
It's very disturbing. It's not human. We all care about people. They could step to anybody out here and just say, like, they have a little issue with a baby or something, but don't put it on the outside on the block.
Yeah, so the medical examiner says information still being collected to determine how long that dead fetus was in the street and the manner of how it even ended up there. 5:51, NYPD asking for your help. Finding 3 people wanted for slashing a 32-year-old in a Bronx, right outside of Bronx laundromat. This is on Boston Road. Police say 3 people caught on camera inside of the laundromat engaged in some sort of verbal argument with this man. And then when the argument went outside, they slashed this 32-year-old in the face, in the head, which, of course, freaking out the neighbors who live near the laundromat.
Yeah, people is crazy. You have to people arguing with you, just don't answer. Well, if I hear the violence going on here, I would just stop on the laundromat.
Yeah, so that person stabbed, sustained serious injuries, taken to a hospital stable condition. Police actually handing us photos of the people they're looking for early this morning, and you can see them over at WABCRadio.com. 5:52, 5 years after Harvey Weinstein was convicted of rape and hauled to jail in handcuffs, the former movie mogul returns to a Manhattan courtroom today for a new trial covering the very same allegations plus one that had not been tried before. It isn't double jeopardy, but rather a legal redo for a New York appeals court overturned the Land Park Me Too verdict a year ago. Do you remember when that happened? The State Court of Appeals actually threw out Weinstein's conviction and the 23-year prison sentence and ordered a new trial after finding that the original one was tilted by egregious judicial rulings and prejudicial testimony. So jury selection going to begin today, could take a few days. Opening statements and the start of the testimony is expected to be next week. The judge, Curtis Farber, said that in addition to the 12 jurors, 6 alternates will be picked. Prosecutors expect retrial to last about a month. 5:53. Told you about this story yesterday. A 9-year-old girl was attacked over the weekend by a pit bull. This was in Bayshore. Her injuries pretty severe. In fact, the dog came very close to biting her eye. And this attack took place on Saturday morning on Lombardi Boulevard. The child was in the driveway when she was attacked by the neighbor's dog, who was not leashed. She was rushed to the hospital with significant injuries. And here's the weird part. Despite the serious nature of the attack, the dog still remains in the neighborhood. Now, you would think after a dog viciously, an unleashed dog, by the way, viciously bites a 9-year-old girl, and that they would come in and say, we need to take the dog away, at least while they determine what takes place. But no, the town of Islip has ordered that the animal be confined for 10 days. But neighbors are alarmed because they say they don't trust that the owner is going to take care of this dog after that vicious attack. Here's some of those neighbors out in Bayshore.
If it's a vicious dog, they should do something because maybe somebody else might get hurt.
It's not really safe to be around this area and this neighborhood with a dog that attacks kids.
Yeah, I don't blame them. I'd be saying the same thing if I was a neighbor. So town officials confirmed the dog's owner has been cited with a ticket for failing to license the pet. But when asked why they have yet to remove the dog, they say it's an ongoing investigation. 5:54. Let's go over to Trenton in a story we also told you about yesterday, but we have more details on. The mom and her teenage daughter died in a shooting in Trenton over the weekend. We now know who they are. We do not know who the gunman is. It was young Jariah Biggs and her mother Malika, and the entire neighborhood trying to come to grips with the fact that the two are gone. So 13-year-old Jariah, her 40-year-old mom, both found inside their home with bullet wounds. They were both dead. They did not release the police any motive, any information anyway about a motive or who may have pulled the trigger, as neighbors are left to mourn this mom and daughter who they'd known for a while.
Very unfair. It's hurtful. I'm angry.
So again, Trenton police not giving us a whole lot of details. Should be worried that this gunman's on the loose. Do they know who it is? Haven't told us a whole lot.
And it's really just a shame that it's ended like this before she could even reach high school. I'm angry because it's senseless. It's just senseless.
You're right. That is totally senseless. And, of course, more details come in. And on that double murder, we'll pass them on to you. On a much lighter note, the public here in New York is getting the chance to name some furry friends at the Long Island Aquarium.
2 pairs of otters, 2 girls and 2 boys, are making waves after being born to their riverhead habitat in February. The pups have opened their eyes, and according to the marketing director of the aquarium, they look like little lumps of cuteness. The name choices for the 2 girl otters are Cherry, Fig, Kiwi, and Peach in honor of their grandma Jelly. And for the boys, as a nod to their grandpa Peanut Butter, the names are between cashew, pecan, pistachio, and walnut. Voting is live on the aquarium website. The winners will be announced on Mother's Day. I'm Liz Radabali for 77 WABC News.
Oh, yeah, still time. Today we honor something we all have to do, but it is the 5th most hated household chore.
According to Good Housekeeping, the average person does about 3 loads of...
Oh, I should point out that apparently it's National Laundry Day.
According to Good Housekeeping, the average person does about 3 loads of laundry every week. Gathering, sorting, pre-soaking.
Mm-hmm.
No wonder we hate it.
Yeah.
The average washer cycle's about 45 minutes, but the average dryer cycle's about an hour.
Right.
So there's waiting, too. The American Cleaning Institute says 80% of all Americans would rather do taxes than laundry. Today, you can do both. I'm Bree Tennis.
National Laundry Day. Okay.